Hi, good evening, everyone. So, a bit of introduction. My name is Pratif. So, I'm actually a recent graduate with the University of Southampton. I graduated last year with a degree in aeronautics and astronautics, and I specialized in the aerodynamics team. So, currently, I'm actually working as a teaching assistant in the Southampton, Malaysia campus. So I guess I'll begin. All right. So the first thing is what actually got me interested in this degree program, because the aero and astro, or the abbreviation to aeronautics and astronautics, is not something that we as the region that we are in is aware about, or something that we are so keen on. So a bit of history, like going back a few years back, to my childhood, to be said, is like I'm always interested in things that are related to space. In particular, the bit where you're actually traveling to space and moving about in space. So right after my secondary schooling, I was looking for universities that actually offered spacecraft engineering modules, with some constraints like money being one of the factor, and also I also one of it is that I do want to get a degree from a reputable university. So that's where I came across the University of Southampton Malaysia campus, and together with its affiliation to the UK side of it. So I was able to experience the 2+2 program, where I had 2 years in the Malaysian campus and 2 years in the UK side. So back then it was a lot smaller. So we had only like about 10 students in the aero and astro cohort. So the picture that you're seeing at the right-hand bottom corner, that's actually everyone from the aero and astro cohort, aside from two of the lecturers who joined us during that night. So this small number of students, even for the mechanical, which we do have a larger quantity, which is around like 50, and the electrical, which is around 20 or so, it kind of fostered a community feel between us. So everyone knows everyone basically. So in a way, you're able to make relations, or actually you make friends that are a bit more in a deeper meaning. So when it comes to like problems they're facing, like if I had issues with the electronic modules, I'll go find my friends from the electrical department sector. And it works the same way as like when they have design problems, because some of their projects involve them actually designing like a box or designing a certain rig, and they'll come and find for us. So this smaller number of students also allowed us to know our lecturers a lot more better. And skipping class isn't like something that you can do, because the lecturers do know if whether you're present in class, and in a way it keeps us on our toes and actually makes us dedicated to what we are doing. So when we move on to the UK side, everything's a lot larger. So it's like this community feel that we had when we were in the Malaysian campus, it gets diluted. But at the same time, you start to feel that you're part of something that's a lot larger. So you have classes which was like 10 in the aero and astro back then. We have like classes that's about 100 of students just in one session. So and also you'll start to meet new lecturers, you'll start to meet researchers, and the work that they are doing in their field, the specializations that they are doing, and you'll come to realize like the things that they do and the affiliations they have. Like they work with big industry groups like Airbus, like Rolls-Royce. It kind of inspire you during your degree, when you're pursuing your degree. So about my undergraduate year, so it's basically a 4 years program. So to get my master's, so it's the first year that I had, which was basically a general overview of everything that we going to learn as an engineering subject. So we were grouped together with the mechanical students because most of our modules are interrelated. And so we learned modules ranging from engineering ethics and practices all the way to design modules and also electrical and electronics. And so those are the undergraduate time. And also in the second year, that's when things starts to deviate a bit more. Where for the aero and astro students, we have modules such as aerodynamics and things such as flight mechanics modules. So that's where my passion, or actually my interest, kind of deviated, because what second year actually taught me, or actually made me realize, is like even though I have my passion, like I'm still passionate about spacecraft stuff, but the field that I want to be impacting, or the field that I want to work on, was actually more on the fluid sector and the aerodynamic side of it. So that's what pushed me to actually have a degree and specialization in the aerodynamic side of work. So basically, so in my turn of audio, so since my interests were very lenient I lean towards more on the aerodynamics and the fluid flows. So that made me to actually take modules in my third and fourth year. So tailored my subjects towards more on these fluid flow motions. So I think that was a great thing, because as a student particularly, I felt like I get to choose the subjects that I wanted to learn. And I had friends who actually took language subjects because they felt that that was something they want to increase on their, or something, the skill that they want to learn on. So some of my friends took Japanese and French. One of the big things like throughout the whole degree program or for the engineering modules specifically is that we have projects every year. So the whole 4 years, you will have projects that are going to be carried out. But the important ones were like the final 2 years, which is your third year and your fourth year. Where in your third year, you have the individual project, and the fourth year, which was a group design project. So during the project's time, it's basically a great way for us as students to apply the knowledge that we get throughout our degree program and actually bring about in practical usage. So in a way, so you'll get to see like how good your design is and how good you're able to manufacture it. And to be fair, also, no matter how good your design is on computer or on paper, there tend to be a lot more issues that comes up when you actually manufacture it. And this kind of small problems that comes up, it makes you angry or actually frustrates you on that, because you thought that your design was the best, or actually it's the ideal thing that you thought you weren't going to get. But then at the same time, what it teaches you is actually you got to problem solve, and actually after going through the whole hardship of finding the solution and working through it, it gives you this sense of joy, actually that sense of high, I call it, which makes you feel happy, and you will look forward to every challenges that comes on future on. So for my individual project, I actually worked mostly on computational stuff. So I looked at improving the flight simulator software side, and also try to integrate VR system into the whole flight simulator, so the hardware side of it. So the whole objective was actually so that we can get a better modeling of flight aircrafts, and also when a pilot is using it, so that we can recreate the actual scenarios within a flight simulator. So at the end of the project, we actually got an experienced pilot, which you see on the picture on the left, to actually try out the rig. And then we got his feedback on how we can improve it further. So for my group design project, was basically building a UAV, so an unmanned air vehicle. So the main objective of this project was to actually take inspiration from nature and try to incorporate those inspiration in our design. So that's why you see those fancy winglets at the end of the tips of the wing. So the picture that you're seeing on the left is actually the picture of my team and I with our aircraft, our first generation aircraft in the wind tunnel. So we were doing our wind tunnel test during that time. So in our second generation aircraft, we were actually going to make those winglets to be furling up and down and actually rotatable, so it's able to control the aircraft's flight instead of using the traditional ailerons and so forth. And also on a side note, so on this particular project, it was actually under the Airbus Bird of Prey initiative, so it was sponsored by them. So throughout the process, we were able to actually meet industry people and actually meet the Airbus, the head of this initiative, and we were able to get his feedback on the design of an aircraft and what we can improve on. So putting all the academic things aside, so there's a good balance between the academic side and also the social life. So there are various clubs and societies that you can join as a student, and actually throughout your time in Malaysia, and at the same time in the UK side. So when I was in the second year, I actually had the opportunity to be the president of the student association. So back then, when I was relatively new, we didn't have a proper established clubs and societies. So we had clubs that are just coming in, and it gets disbanded at the end of the year. So back then, we felt that it was something that we had to work on. So together with my team and I, so we had met great people who actually had the same idea, same vision, to actually make sure to standardize the approach. So we were able to have a much more basic or much more formalized approach of clubs being established. And after coming back as a staff and working in the university, I'm happy to see some of the clubs that actually established back then with us is still around till now and actually active. Then when I was in the UK, I went into sports. Rugby is an interest of mine for a long time, so that's something that I wanted to go for. It's actually a great way for me to actually de-stress and actually also to meet new people through the competitions and through the training sessions. So if sports isn't the thing that's on your side or something that you're keen on, there are various other clubs and societies. There are like language societies, cultural societies, and also there's also one of the prominent one is the Formula Student team, where they actually design and build their Formula car. So it's being sponsored by external companies, being sponsored by the university, and they do bring it around the world to actually race, and actually they do win competitions during the process. That's all from me. I hope you enjoyed my sharing session, and thank you for your time.
All right, so now we are going to invite Son to share his graduation journey and then some tips on how to navigate a career search on graduation.
Hi everyone, thanks Ziha, thanks Prateef. Hope you can hear me. I'm just gonna, I think, open up my slides. Right, so just a bit about me. I'm actually I did a 4-year mechanical engineering specializing in mechatronics at the University of Southampton. So that was a very fun and very interesting journey in Southampton. And then I am currently working as a graduate design engineer at Dyson in the UK. I actually did an internship, a summer internship at Dyson in my between my 3rd and 4th year. So that's how I got a return offer to come back and work at Dyson. Some additional info, like during my time in uni, I actually co-founded a video production business, which I was working on the side. I was also involved in the Malaysian Students Association in Southampton. I did PR for them. I also did PR for the Formula student team in Southampton. So that was great fun. And yeah, that's my LinkedIn link if you want to connect with me. So I think first off, I think I'm going to talk about how I got an internship, because I think a lot of people are interested in this, like especially when you're in uni, like after your 2nd and 3rd years, starting to think about your career. Well, actually, it's a funny story. Actually, my individual project in my 3rd year, and I do agree with Prateef that it's the projects that we have in Southampton are really fun and exciting because it's very hands-on, and you get to work with a lot of industry partners. So my IP was actually to create sort of like a motion tracking device for cordless vacuum cleaners, and this was done in the hopes of using it to improve the ergonomics of a device, because we wanted to know how people use like a vacuum cleaner or basically any handheld tool, and what are the forces that they are exposed to when using it in a different orientations or different angles. So we come up with like this low cost sensor device, which is actually in this box here. And this project was actually sort of related to Dyson, but I actually didn't really think of applying to Dyson. I was talking to my flatmate one day in the kitchen about how I was working on this project, and then he was like, "Oh, actually, it sounds like very applicable to Dyson. Like you should try and apply to Dyson." And I was thinking, yeah, actually, that sounds like, I mean, I've got nothing to lose. So I went online and I looked at the Dyson website, and I actually missed the application cycle. I missed the deadline in November, because normally you would apply for your internships at the end of the year, like between September and November. And so I was like, okay, why don't I just write an email to Dyson? Then I emailed their careers email, and then they were like, oh yeah, we don't have anything open now, but just keep checking our website. And then I think one day I just randomly went and clicked on that link in the email just to see whether there were any new positions, and suddenly they opened up new internship positions for the summer of 2019, which was like the following year. And I was like, okay, why not just apply? And I use this project in my CV as an example. And then yeah, so I applied online in March. And besides Dyson, I actually applied to more than 30 companies. So it's actually very competitive to get an internship. I think not only in the UK, but also in Malaysia. I also applied to companies in Malaysia, and I think the only interview offer that I got was actually Dyson. So actually I was really lucky that I got the offer from Dyson to do like an interview and an assessment at their campus in early June. So I went there and I answered some questions, did like an individual challenge, and then there was an engineering manager there who interviewed me. And then So apparently I did well, and then they offered me an internship, which started in July. So yeah, so that's the link to like where all the positions are on our website. If you're interested in applying to Dyson, what do I do in Dyson? I think this is quite an interesting question. There's a lot of things that I do, but let's just start off by talking about Dyson. So you might have heard of like Dyson vacuum cleaners, or you might have seen like Dyson hand dryers in like a lot of shopping mall, like toilets, and you've seen like Dyson products around. So I think Dyson was founded 30 years ago by James Dyson, and we are like, I guess vacuum cleaners is one of like our core businesses. But recently we've become more popular for our personal care products. So like our supersonic hair dryers, our air wraps. And also we've got a lot of bladeless fans, and that's the type of product that I work on. I work on the purifiers and basically the environmental air purification, that category of products. So in my team, we're called the user experience team, and we work in new product development. So basically we take like the concepts they come up with like further upstream. So there are these product designers that come up, like invent like new products, and we bring these products to production by developing and testing all these products. So in user experience, we basically specialize in, you know, improving and designing all the user interaction features on the product. So for example, I have like a plastic part over here, and one of the things that we do is, you know, like specify like what the design of like these buttons or these levers are, and like, you know, how much force that goes into these, and whether it's like nice to hold and nice to use, and whether it's comfortable for the user. And I think one of my favorite things is that, you know, it's very varied. So we do a lot of things as graduates. And although I'm in the user experience team, I've had the chance to work on many like other areas as well. So I've got to do a lot of like CAD design, 3D design, and also a lot of building of test rigs or hands-on work in the workshop. And so that opens up to a lot of like learning opportunities basically in the office. So I've just got a video here just to show you what engineering in Dyson is like. So I'm gonna play the video. Okay, I think the video is not playing. Let me just pull it up. I've just got a video separately over here. I'm just gonna put that up.
We wanted to create attachments for different hair types that are as precisely engineered as the supersonic itself.
When I'm working backstage, I need to be able to manage any type of hair and any type of style.
Our smoothing nozzle was developed to create a smooth airflow, while the styling concentrator focuses air for precision styling.
Each attachment has been designed to give me the specific results that I'm looking for when I'm styling hair.
The diffuser has been redesigned to diffuse the airflow more evenly, with longer prongs to reach deeper into the hair.
Creates a heat pattern that ends up setting the most defined, most exceptional curl that I've ever experienced.
We've created our wide tooth comb attachment with robust pyramid-shaped teeth.
It helps elongate that curl, stretch it out, and it has that kind of strength and robustness. So I can move through that hair very efficiently.
And a gentle air attachment which styles with the same power, just more gently and cooler.
They have so much technology and engineering inside of them. These tools give me the control I need to create the styles that I want.
So that video basically just like highlights what the sort of sort of engineering that work that goes into developing a product at Dyson. And although we're developing like everyday, consumer products like hair dryers and fans, but there's a lot of testing and a lot of design work that goes into like the science and the technology behind it. And I think it's really fun and exciting to be part of that, because you're always coming up with new concepts, and you have to think of new ways to actually test these like concepts. So now let me just show you. So this is where I work. This is Southampton in England, and this is actually a former Royal Air Force base. So basically there's a big runway in front of my office, and we work in a hangar. And this hangar was actually like the actual hangar that was used in like World War II during the air base times, and then they converted it into an office. So this is what our office looks like, with nothing in it, obviously. But this is an open, so it's a very open plan office, and you get to like walk up to people and ask a lot of questions. So it's a very collaborative environment, I would say, like in terms of like how the engineering design world works. And you've got like all these whiteboards everywhere where people are like just jotting down ideas. So I think it's really cool to be like in that kind of environment when you're working, because it gives you like a lot of creative freedom as well. I've just got another video here of what we did during our internship. I'm not sure why Teams doesn't allow me to play all the videos, but I've got the videos separately, so just bear with me. Okay, so during my internship, we actually got to participate in this escape room challenge. So just a bit of fun alongside the work. So in that video, you could see like engineers at Dyson, they were tasked with actually coming up with like this whole escape room concept using parts that we have around the office. So I think that was a really interesting way to like highlight the other side of like the work that we do, is like, we have fun as well. I think one of the highlights of my internship is actually, I did get a lot of independence to actually take charge of projects. One of my projects was actually to improve like how people interact with like our filters on our products. So I was given a lot of independence to conduct like user trials and all that, and I actually conducted like almost like 60 user trials during my internship. And then I had to like collate all that data into a report, and then I presented it to like heads of engineering and also like the different like heads of engineering teams in our department. And I think that was like really cool to be able to like work on something that makes an impact on the products, like as an intern. And the other thing I got to do was actually be in charge of a new like feature on the new product, which is not out yet. But my manager was basically, okay, you'll be in charge of like UX for that project. And then he just sent me in for the meetings, and I was the only one there representing like our team at the meeting with all the other stakeholders. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm an intern, but like you get like all this responsibility, but obviously like you get a lot of support as well from your colleagues and your managers to work on projects by yourself. And as a graduate and as an intern, you get a lot of training opportunities. So we do a lot of like CAD training, like there's online courses, health and safety, software training if you do like more software work. But I do mostly like hands-on like design work. And I think coming in as a graduate, I think there was a lot of things that you feel like you don't know, and like when you're sitting in those like meetings with all the heads of departments and teams, you're like, ooh, you really got to be like humble and like be open to a lot of criticism, and like it's really a learning opportunity, and people are always helpful to like to support like what you do. And I think that was like my experience coming in. Like you feel like you don't know a lot of things, so you just really got to be humble and like know where to ask and how to ask like the questions that to the answers that you want to know. And I think in terms of what's it like to work in Dyson, this was like a picture of like our internship cohort. So like a lot of these people actually came back as graduates. So I'm still working with them right now. And I think it was a very good sense of community, and this was actually like a gift that I got from my teammates when I left my internship. And an interesting thing that we did during my internship was that we had like a team social, and then I suggested that, okay, let's go do like this outdoor tree top obstacle course thing. Everyone else is like, no, let's go bowling or go-karting. I was like, no, let's do this because it's more fun and we've now never done it before. And so we all went for this like tree top obstacle course. But unfortunately, I was the first one to get stuck on top of a tree, and then I had to get rescued by some colleagues. So yeah, that was an interesting thing that happened during my internship. In terms of like what other stuff I did as a graduate, well, I think the other thing that I really like is that I'm a really creative person. I don't only like to do technical stuff, so I'm also interested in like business and like creative things like marketing, filmmaking. So there's been a lot of opportunities as a graduate to work cross teams. So like with our marketing teams, with a commercial team, I'm actually working on like projects like supporting the like marketing activities of our product launches. So I come up with like I get to like design things like demos for our product launches and things that go on to our TV ads. So it's like, yeah, that's really fun to like be able to have that opportunity in such a large company to like go into all those other areas and meet those like different teams. So like back to like the real questions, like how do you get a return offer? I think in terms of like getting a job, I think I would say that it's a slightly easier way to get a job by getting a return offer than to like actually apply again like to a lot of like graduate positions, because then the competition is much higher when you're applying as a graduate compared to like an internship position. So my advice would be to like make the most out of your internship. I think like networking and like talking to a lot of your teammates is really important because it helps you to get a feel of like what's it like working there, and like some of these people have been there 10 or 20 years, and like what do they enjoy the most, like what keeps them coming back. And I think a lot of the comments that I got was like, we're always doing different things every day or like every project, so that's why they come back, because it's like it's exciting to them. And also like what we do in our organizations, we've got a lot of monthly and weekly one-to-one meetings with our manager. I think those are the meetings that are really important. Like you talk about the feedback that you get, and like you ask your manager for feedback as well. And I think what people like really like in any organization is that you are really open to like receiving constructive like feedback, and you're willing to work on like improve on any weaknesses you have, and also like you understand like what you need to do. So like having all these open and good communication, like these conversations with your manager and your team is like really important. I think go the extra mile is also really good, like because you wanna show that you're a useful addition to the organization. But you don't want to do it for the sake of showing off, like, oh, you want to be like the best among everyone. I think you want to contribute effectively and positively to like the team, and give that extra 10% when you're doing anything. So I think personally I like to like volunteer. I like to grab opportunities basically. So like if someone's saying, oh, can you help us out on this project, if I've got time for it and I'm able to like, maximize myself out of doing that, then yes, I'll jump onto it and I'll help people out with like different like small tasks as well. And that's how I like meet people and also like learn new things. So like right now I'm like working on a lot of different things as a graduate. I think I'm working on like 2 or 3 like different like projects, like sub projects. So like a week, like in a week of work is actually quite varied. Like one day I could be in the lab doing some like drop tests or something, or some vibration tests, and then the next week I'll be like on a call with someone in Japan talking about what to do for like for another project that I'm working on, or I'll be on a call with the marketing team talking about like what sort of like demos we've got planned. So like it's I guess it's really varied, I guess, and try and grab like a lot of opportunities that come your way. And the last thing was that the final presentation, which I did to my head of department, which was like the head of engineering. I think it's really good to like be able to show the results of what you've been doing throughout your internship. So I think as engineers, like as technical people, people like to see numbers. So I put up like all the numbers of like, how many stuff I worked on and what impacts I had. And I think that's also very important for your CV if you're applying to jobs, put numbers on your CV if you can. Like if you can say like, oh, I took charge of like something XXX amount of budget and to work on this project, or I took charge of like a team of like 10 people to work on this like project in a society. So I think people like to see numbers as well. So if you can include that on your applications and on your presentations, I guess that helps to like justify a lot of things. Yeah, I guess like that's basically a summary of like what I've done so far. I'm not sure if you have any like specific questions, but if you do have any questions, please like feel free to like put them into like the chat box on this like live stream. Yeah, but thanks everyone for listening.
Thank you so much, Sean and Prateek. Very engaging session. I mean, loved it. I wish I had a session like that when I was looking for a degree. I could have a lot more better inspiration and clarity. But thank you so much. It was lovely to hear both of you. There's a question shared by one of the attendees, and I understand it's again something very important, and I believe that no one else is in a better position to answer that than you two. The question is, how do you ensure a first-class degree in the university? Obviously, in terms of results. While listening to you, I understand you've been managing internships, portfolios, projects, right? So how do you really get the best out of it while ensuring that your results are also, reflective of that? What would your individual comments be about that, please?
Okay. I guess that's shall I go first, Prateek?
Yeah, you go ahead. Yeah.
I think like how to guarantee a first class degree. I think that's a bit hard to answer because I think everyone is different. And first off, I would like to start by saying that a first class degree isn't everything. I think that's not the most important thing. I don't know, for me, like to apply for jobs, I think most jobs are just looking for 2-1. And I think that was what I was expecting. I was expecting a 2-1 anyways. So I didn't place too much emphasis on getting a first class. But like I said, everyone is different. Like you might want to like get a first class, like because that's your goal. But I think firstly is to actually be like quite consistent in your studying. And I think if you could like spend like set aside some time every week to like study, I think that is quite a good like trait to have, because I see that a lot of my friends get first class, they actually like study quite consistently. For me myself, I think I'm like a borderline first class side. I don't think I have like the right to say what works. But for me, I don't say I'm very studious. I would say that I'm like the kind of person that studies like maybe like 2 weeks to a month before the exam. But what I find really helpful is actually like group studying. So like we tend to like during like the revision weeks, we tend to like form groups like with like our friends. And I think the last exam that we had, so like the January exam like last year, we actually like got together in our flat's kitchen, and then we were studying like this subject together, because you know, like, although you might attend the lectures, you might not understand everything, and there's always someone like that understands something better than you, and you would understand some parts better than others. So I think it's good to have like that two-way like sort of collaboration with your peers, and I think by teaching each other you actually learn as well. So I'm really grateful that I had like such like good and like friends that were very generous with their knowledge. And I think that collaboration is really very important. And I think asking a lot of questions as well, like during the lectures, if you're asking questions, I think that's really good. Like always like try to be proactive in what you're learning.
Prateek,
Yeah.
your take on that, Prateek, please.
Right. Yeah. Actually, to be fair, also it's like whatever Sean is saying is actually basically something that I share personally too. But what I would say is like what I did find for myself is personally is like at the start of it is like in your first year when you're trying out stuff, it's going to be something you're going to have a lot of pitfalls. So what I found it to be working is because in Sean's case, he found it that he working in a group, like having group studies, is something that helped him out in studying. For my side, is because I'm a different kind of a learner. I prefer to be studying like have a secluded kind of thing. So I'm more of a guy who studies when I'm better at studying when I'm alone. So what I would say is like it's probably test the waters out at the start of your semester. So you can have like okay, you start off with a group study and see if it works for you, because everybody, yeah, it's true. It's that everybody have a different kind of approach on how they study. Like some of them they do listen to music and study, but some of them can't, because like me, I personally can't listen to music and study because it just distracts me a lot. So yeah, so that's how I'd say. It's like to start off with, you just find, you try to navigate through within the first semester, like see what works for you the best. But at the same time also, yeah, I'm about the same also. Is like I'm not really a first class to say. It's like I'm also a borderline first class. So it kind of a numbers game to me when I played out throughout my final year, because the way it works out is that your third and fourth year is going to carry a lot of percentage. But I'm not saying that your first 2 years is something that you got to neglect, because those are your core knowledge that you got to bring up all the way to your final years. But what we'll do is actually see where you can go and see get your marks at the places that you think that you can affect. Because like when I was taking up modules that are aerodynamics related, a lot of my modules are actually to say is the tough modules. And a lot of my friends, actually there was no one who were taking the similar modules like mine. So I have like modules such as hypersonic flows, had turbulence modules, so those like big jargons which will kind of scare some students away. But yeah, so the reason why I went to it, because I felt that it's going to be interesting. So better the issue of it, I thought that okay, I'll just go for it and see what works for me best. And for those kind of like tough modules that you find, it's like you do have a lot of approaches. Like you hear students saying like, oh, I read before I enter to class, and whatever the lecturer is saying, it kind of builds up upon it. So finding the tune of actually what works best for you is the most important thing, or the most important advice that I will give to you if you do want to look at achieving high results. But it's not necessary for you to actually like everyday study one subject and actually continuously study without looking at your balance between your social life and your academic life. So finding the right balance and trying it out at the start of it is the best way for you to approach it. Yeah.
Great input, Prateek and Sean. Thank you so much for that. And I think the last statement sort of summarizes everything, that you have to create a balance, and that obviously helps you having a healthy mind and body, which obviously helps with studies as well. And I think I picked up something very interesting from Sean, that yes, it's not about the grades and all. You got to be able to, absorb it, understand it. So again, I believe the employers also believe that if you got a decent, very impressive portfolio with some decent projects and all, and results are 0.1, 0.2 CGPA, they would probably go for that performance, that industrial experience and project, rather than worrying about 1.1 CGPA and all. To a note to everyone, please, if you've got very interesting questions, keep those coming in. We have Prateek and Sean to address those. I've got a number of questions, so that's why it will be a little late to get to your question, but we'll make sure that all questions are answered before we leave this forum. Prateek and Sean, the next question shared is, how do I achieve high results? And that's something that obviously I can also learn from you. So do I have to study all day and keep studying in depth, or would you have some other tips, of securing, scoring good results in exams? Please, your tips.
I think for this what I came to realize for like the Southampton, actually the modules that were done curated, it's a lot of it is based on projects and also like assignments at the same time with your what do you call your main on paper like a normal examination. What I would say is like actually even though you do have the assignments, and a lot of people will tend to like neglect the assignments, saying okay, let me just lose some marks from that, but you got to realize that those marks are also going to impact the overall thing. So putting effort in assignments are actually something that you do want to do instead of leaving it all the way to the end and approaching the exam as a final basis that you want to attack at. So yeah, and in terms of studying in depth, like you don't need to study all day. You just need to like an hour or two, and basically having a very spanned out like consistency, like what Sean said earlier, having consistent kind of approach towards the whole scenario is the main thing that you got to have within you. So you don't want to like study the whole day and then the next day you're going to continue on it. This continuous flow of it just makes you, and it just stresses you out, and you're not going to get the most out of your learning experience.
Thank you for that. Sean, I'll put the next question to you, and that says that how do you get good internships? For example, what would be your tips for getting internships? Since you work with Dyson, you mentioned, how would you tackle that situation?
Well, I think like the first thing is actually to have a good CV, and I think Southampton has like there's a lot of like resources available on like how you can like work on polishing up your CV. So there's like the careers office, which offers like help, like one-to-one advice. I think now they do it like online, but I know they have like CV workshops which you can attend, and they also have like mock interview sessions, which a lot of my friends actually like make use of, and I think that's really helpful. Personally, I attended this CV workshop like organized by the Malaysian Students Association like a couple of years back, and I think that one was really helpful, like in a way of like how to structure my CV and what sort of information to have. I think one of the key takeaways was actually to, put a lot of like relevant information in for the job that you're applying. So don't like have like a one size fits all CV. I think it's very important to like customize your CV to the job or the industry that you're applying for. Like I was applying for like engineering jobs and business jobs and also like creative jobs. So I had like a slightly different CV for each type of industry. So like if you're applying engineering jobs, I think most importantly, they want to see like what technical knowledge you have, like any projects that you have. I think the project part is very important, especially to Dyson. They want to see any hands-on like experience that you have with like 3D design or manufacturing, or like that kind of like portfolio of stuff. So have a very tailored CV, and then use a lot of keywords like a lot of like powerful words to show that, oh, I was responsible for this, or I spearheaded, or I led the development of something in your society or in your project. I think it's very good to have examples. Don't just say I am a very good critical thinker and I work very well on the team. I think it's very important to give specific examples like oh, I collaborated with a team of 20 people to design this for the Formula student team, for example, or I worked in a fast-paced retail environment, handling transactions, or as a cashier, or even if you're like even if you're putting experience that it's part-time or anything, I think the transferable skills is very important. So if you can like show like the evidence of that in your CV, I think that's very important. And then the second thing is, a lot of like times applying to jobs is really about luck. Like I think it's like probably like 70% of your skills, and then 30% is like your luck. So I would say like always be very like persistent and dedicated about it. You might apply to like 30, 50, or maybe even 100 positions, and you might only get like 1 or 2 replies. So I've known people who've applied to like more than 100 positions and they finally got like a job. So like you really do need to like persevere in that and like not give up, because like it is possible to get a job. And especially like now in the current like situation, things are gonna be more competitive and harder. So like you just gotta be like very positive and like persevere and stay like true to what your goal is, I guess.
Beautiful, Sean. Very helpful. Thank you so much for such a detailed response. And what you said is very true. Even the HR professionals tell you that you got to tailor the CV's application, study the environment a little bit before applying, because then they feel that you have investigated enough to know them and you're making an effort. So thank you for that input. Prateek, I'll put the next question to you. And it is that if you could give one piece of advice to an undergraduate student, one advice, what would that be? Prateek.
I think the one thing that you got to take in mind is like you got to enjoy the journey. Is that whole feeling of just enjoyment. So it's what I came to realize like towards the end of this whole process is like going through tertiary studies and coming to work and everything. It's actually a whole thing is actually a learning process. So whatever you're learning in tertiary education, it's not really whatever you're doing in degree kind of perspective. So no matter the knowledge that you get, so even though you're doing a degree in engineering, yes, true, you have engineering knowledge that's helping you. But at the same time, what they are trying to teach you is actually you got to take the initiative to learn stuff as you go. So even if you go in industry or you go into working life, the only best way that you could do is actually learn new skills every single time. And enjoying the process is the most single thing that you got to actually keep in mind, because you don't want to, at the end of the day, dread the whole process of it, and it'll just make your life, or it'll just make you feel a lot more sadder, like thinking, oh, why did I take this? So yes, enjoy your life or enjoy whatever steps that you take throughout the whole process. And even though you do see some pitfalls, look at the bright side of the things. Like look at what was the good thing that happened while you went through that downside or actually that pitfalls.
Thank you, Prateek. Thank you. Look at the bright side. That's the verdict. Look at the bright side and always be positive. Correctly said. Sean, I'll put the next question to you, and that would be that how do you balance your social and academic projects? And obviously, considering this the current generation, so much of distraction, so much of social engagement, online, offline. So what would you say how the students should manage their social portfolios as well as their academic projects going forward?
Thank you. Yeah, that's a very good question, and I think that like balancing your social and academic projects actually applies a lot to like working life as well, like being an adult, because you know when you come out and work, you get a lot of like tasks to do, and you really know you need to know how to manage your time. So I think first off, like good time management and good prioritization is very important. You need to know what is your limit, like how much work you can take on, and everyone is different. I cannot like say that, oh, you only can do like 2 activities at a time. Like some people can do 10 things at a time and some people can only do one. So you need to know like what your personal limit is. You need to know yourself. In terms of like uni social and academic stuff, like I actually, besides being a student, I was involved in quite a few societies. Like I was doing Malaysian Students Association, and I was doing Formula Student, and then I also did like some part-time jobs like every now and then. So like I think you need to know like what to prioritize at any given point in time. And this is like a philosophy that I go with like even when I'm working. So like let's say like if you're really close to an exam, then you know that your priority should be to study. Assuming you want good grades, your priority should be like to study and like focus on the academic stuff and like put everything else on like hold. And then if you're like after exams and after that, like you know you feel like you've got a bit of time and you can catch up later, then I would say go and like do the other things that you want to do, like your societies or your social projects. So it's quite a bit of balancing work like that at work as well. So it's like you get like given an infinite amount of tasks to do, but like sometimes you need to, well, most of the time you have to do them. Sometimes you need to know how to say no and like justify why you're saying no, and say okay, I'm working on like these 3 things at the moment. I'll be happy to take on this 4th thing, but it would mean that these 3 things will be delayed. Is that okay? Or or just say, I'm working on 3 things right now, I'm quite busy, I don't think I can work on this thing number 4 until like maybe 2 or 3 weeks later. So I think it's good to like have that sort of like managing your expectations of whoever is like giving you the work. And I think it's also the same in uni. So in uni you sort of have like more choice, because it's you're deciding for yourself whether you want to pick up like those societies or those activities. So yeah, I think if you're able to like estimate, how long you would take to do things and how long each thing would take to do, then that sort of like helps you like figure out the pieces in the puzzle. So yeah, just like try and understand yourself first and then work out a plan that works for you.
Thank you so much, Sean. Thanks for that again. Prateek, I'll put the next question to you. That how useful is the information taught in the lectures when you work as an intern or when you go to work? So you can answer it in a sense that I mean the academic experience that you're having in the classes, what you're taught, right? How relevant it is for immediate application during an internship or immediately upon graduation, or is it a struggling phase to adjust, or does that help enough to just hit the ground running?
So the thing about the things that are structured is like I believe because every companies, if you look at, they have their own way of running things. They have their own particular software they use. They have their own stuff, how they conduct things. But what I came to realize also is that the knowledge that you get through the education in the university itself, it's like it's coming back to what I said. It teaches you to learn. So it does give you the criteria. Like just take for example like coding. So you'll be taught to code in Python, but when you go to industry, they'll ask you to use a different language, probably in C++ or some other language. But the thing is that both of these are just the approach of just going through this coding perspective is going to be similar. It's just the language usage is different, and learning just the language will be a quick process instead of going through the whole thing over again. So yeah, so throughout the process, you basically the education that you get in the university, it's a very base and it gives you a solid foundation for you to progress and actually tailor it or actually work on it a lot more deeper. And those experiences are something that you get when you're in industry or you come out to work. Yeah.
Thank you, Prateek. The next question is very interesting, and I believe, I mean, as a student counselor coming across a lot of students, during education phase and all this, we do feel, or we do get that sense of this sort of feeling among the students, The question is that do you ever encounter imposter syndrome? Imposter syndrome, just for your understanding knowledge, is that when somebody is doubting his or her own potential, when people are telling that you are good enough, but then you feel that you actually are not there, you're not competent enough, and you may not be able to sort of satisfy others' expectations, that fear of failure and all, right? But yeah, I mean, it doesn't mean that you're not that good, but it's just that you have that syndrome of not being able to come up to people's as per people's expectations. So from that point of view, the question is that do you or have you encountered that sort of experience, and if it was there, how did you overcome it? I'll leave either of you to answer. If both have comments, that would be great, but either one can take this question up, please.
Sean, do you want me to go first? Because I think I have something.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So the imposter syndrome, I actually didn't know the technical name to it, but it's something that I do go through every now and then. And to be frank, it's something that I go through even right now. I don't say right now, but throughout, like even at the age that I am right now. Because the thing is that it piles up everything, like because you think that whatever you're doing at the start, it's not going to be effective, or it's not coming to fruition to what you actually see yourself, like the dreams that you have. But what I come to realize to actually help me out throughout this certain episodes of actually, because imposter syndrome, how it hits is like it hits a certain moment and a certain time. It's like at the end of it, like right after your exam or right before your exam periods, it's like saying you'll start thinking that you're not good enough to take the exams, or when you go for an interview, you'll start thinking you're not good enough to do the interview. And at the end of it, and when you get bad results from it, it just makes you feel a lot more negative, and it brings you down. Yes, true. Overall, it brings you down. So that's something that even I can't run away from all the time. But what I did found to be helpful to me is actually look at that small things that we want as we approach that particular negativity, that big negativeness. So every step of the way, there's this small positiveness that actually helps you out or tells you, okay, yes, I've accomplished this thing along the way and I've accomplished this second milestone and so on. It's just that my final result is not something that I want. So since my final result is not something that I think that I'm getting, so let's find another way, but using all this other positivity or all these small milestones to help and find a new path. So that's what I've come to think that helped me overcome. So I'm not going to say that right now is something that I'm at the best position that I am, because I feel like I'm still learning. I feel like I still need to achieve a bit more, and still feel that I have a lot more things that I can do. So yeah, so throughout the process, I'm just accumulating those small little milestones and enjoying those at the same time.
Thanks, Prateep. Sean, would you have any comment on that as well?
Yeah, I think like self-doubt is definitely is definitely quite common. I think like a lot of people like do face that at some point. And personally, I also have times where, you know, you doubt yourself and you wonder whether you're really able to like do those things, or whether you can like, you know, live up to expectations. But I think one way to like deal with that is that if you are able to like structure, like have a plan, like Prateep said, like if you're able to know what it is your strengths are and what your weaknesses are, I think if you have that self-awareness, then you can sort of like figure out what the plan is to get yourself to like that higher position or the goal that you have. So like if you know, like for example, like if I'm not like if you don't have like very good communication skills, like I think personally, like sometimes like some of the I feel like, oh, I'm a bit like shy when I'm speaking to a lot of people, and then you're like, I need to work on my presentation skills. So like you know, like, okay, what are those weaknesses are, and then you know that, okay, I gotta do these things to work on it. So then you know that, okay, I'm working on it right now, so you don't really need to like dwell on it so much, because you know you have a plan, and you're gonna like sort it out at some point. So so I would say that I don't really like struggle from the imposter syndrome itself, but I think I do have like moments of self-doubt. But I think when I have those moments, then I figure out a plan on how I'm going to like improve myself. So like that's like my take on it.
Thanks, Sean. I'm sure that will be helpful from both of you. To the questionnaire, I'm like the question asked. You're most welcome to contact Southampton's career counseling team as well. I'll put my contact details later to address a couple of there are a number of articles on imposter syndrome and how do you manage it and all this. It'd be lovely to have a chat on that later. Right now, I'll move past to the next question, and that is, what do you think about the living costs in UK compared to Malaysia? You know, what was the experience like? Any comments on that, please?
Oh, this is like, it's hard to say. I guess like 1 to 1. If you're talking about currency wise, like 1 to 1, if I don't convert, then I think it would seem that the living cost is lower. So for example, like let's say when I was living in Johor, like the rent per room per month for a room is like I think if you have a master bedroom, it's like maybe 900 ringgit, 800, 900 ringgit, maybe 1,000, depending on what apartment you have. And you can probably rent like a whole apartment, like 3-bedroom apartment in Johor, in like Nusa Jaya, for like, I don't know what the market rate, maybe 2,000, 2,005 like per month, ringgit. Right now, I am not living in London. London prices are crazy. So I know that, like for example, in London, like a room, just a room itself, like maybe with an attached bathroom, can cost you like anywhere between £800 to 1,000 something pounds, depending how central you are in London. Right now, I'm living in Swindon, which is like a city that is like sort of like in between Bath and like Bristol, and like it's like a 1 hour commute to work. So it's not really like London price, and it's not really like Bristol price either. So it's like, it's below 1,000 for like an apartment, like between like 500 to 700 for an apartment. And that is like in pounds. And then in terms of food, I would say that the food, if you don't convert, it's also like cheaper. Like for example, you can buy vegetables like under £1. A meal, if you eat outside, if you eat like normal stuff that's not fancy, it will be maybe £7 for a meal. And that it's normally quite a decent sized portion. So like that's the cost of a meal. A pint of beer would cost like maybe £2 something in a bar, like in case you're interested in that. And so yeah, I would say that the living cost is in some aspects higher. Like if you're like talking about rent, like if you're in London, then obviously the living cost would be higher. But for me, because I don't live in London and not in a big city, I think the living cost is quite low. So yeah, I'm not sure if that answers your question, but if you have a specific cost that you want to know about, then yeah, do put that in. Cars are cheaper here though. Like cars are much cheaper because of the tax is lower. So if you want to buy cars, it's much cheaper.
Thanks, Sean. I'll have to put a censoring that toot sound on your bare cost and all this, but yeah, otherwise very helpful. Thank you so much. I mean, just to add to your thing. I mean, yeah, it's the normal perception is that, oh, because it's 6 times or 5.5 times higher currency, so maybe the living is exactly 6 times or 5 times more expensive, which actually is not the case. And what you said is right, that if you're living in a bit of suburbs or out of the main areas, it's relatively more economical. One of the benefit that I probably should mention here, that because Southampton students, they have the transfer options and when move there, they already have a good student community coming from Southampton, Malaysia, moving to Southampton, UK. And that helps, I mean, people living together, getting, I mean, sharing the accommodation with your seniors and references. So that also helps to, I believe, reduce the cost to some extent. It is generally slightly expensive, but I think not as what is perceived to be straight away 6 times. So thanks for input on that, Sean. Prateep, I'll put one question to you, and that is that how about getting internships, while studying in Southampton? I understand it's probably coming from Southampton, Malaysia point of view, but you can generally share your experience about getting internships.
All right. Yeah, so it's actually the process and all of it is basically the same like how you're going to look at in the UK side. So I believe Sean has covered up a lot of key things, which is the important part bit is the, what do you call the CV? And that's the main thing that you got to tailor it. So you don't have a one size fits all CV. But at the same time, it's there's a thing where you got to try to find companies within the Malaysia region. So you got to do your research, a bit of research, finding companies that interest you or look at things that interest you and actually actively write emails to them. So even though they don't have like a dedicated portals for them to, like dedicated careers portal, so you can always send an email to the HR department or send an email to as an inquiry asking them whether they have an opening. And most likely they're not, they will do reply and say, yes, we do have an opening, or they'll say that, oh, we are not taking in anyone. So it's a good practice. So when you're going to, like when you're sending the email to them, also probably want to include is a cover letter and a CV together, and probably ask if inquire whether they have a job for it. So it's just mostly going to come back to the perspective of actively searching on the internet and companies that if you've heard of or somewhere you have known of, so you can try looking at those. Yeah.
Perfect, Prateep. Last question for the time being. We'll see if there any other question comes up, but for the time being, it is the last one, and that is big company or the small company. When it comes to internship, obviously the idea is that with big company, you probably have higher expectations, and more demanding on all. But yeah, at the same time, the learning experience is much bigger. Big company or small company? Sean.
Okay. I guess there's pros and cons to both. I think if you look at it on the face value, like if you work in a big company, then you obviously can put that on your CV, and I think a lot of people want to have that on the CV as well. So I think that is probably a pro. I guess working like interning in a big company like Dyson, you get to see a lot of processes and policies that they have in place to manage such a large and complex organization with like thousands of people working around the globe. And I think it's quite nice to have that exposure to like how the big companies work, how the big boys play. So like that is like, it's quite eye-opening, I would say. In terms of small companies, I don't really have experience working like in like small engineering like or tech companies in Malaysia, but I did used to manage a business like myself and with a few other partners. So like I guess I could answer that from that perspective, is that in a small company you sort of do everything yourself, and there's a lot of that opportunity to work on things that you might not be able to do in a big company, because in a big company everyone only does like one job, but in a small company everyone wears many hats. So I think that is something that you would find in like smaller startups as well. So if you go work for a startup, maybe then you get the exposure to being able to being involved in like the marketing, for example, or being involved in the sales as well. So you don't only do like what you're required to do. But also likewise in a big company, you also have the exposure, but maybe on a more limited level. So it really depends. I think it's nice to have a balance of both. If you wanna, maybe one year you can work in a big company and the next year you can work in a small company, then you would have like an experience in both, and you would know by the end of your course what type of environment suits you. So yeah, that's my take on it. Yeah.